Hello, my name is Fabled, and I sometimes go by the name of Simon, and this is a thoughts video. A thoughts video on the 2017 game of Spirit Island, a game designed by Eric Roos. This is a cooperative game which plays kind of similar to Pandemic, except in the sense that you are spirits. You are spirits protecting an island that's been taken over by colonial powers. It's kind of colonialism in reverse in that you're actually playing the good guys, trying to stop colonialism and trying to stop the island from being destroyed by, well, humanity. Essentially, you have natives who are you trying to protect, but at the same time, you're also trying to destroy the invaders, the white people. I'm not going to skip over this, they literally are white miniatures. But you're trying to destroy them so that they don't spread their horrible filth and build towns and build cities. That's the basics of the game. You're essentially going to play through a phase where you'll play your cards, and these are kind of your spirit or power cards, and then the invaders will then act, and similar to Pandemic, they will then try and spread around the map, or they'll try and build buildings, or then they'll try and ravage the land, depending on where they are. It's a co-op game where you are trying to mitigate as much damage as possible to this island and get to the point where you can just wipe out the invaders so they never come back. And it is a really, really good game. I was kind of skeptical going into this simply because I didn't think the Kickstarter was that interesting. I think there was some, I think the company that did the Kickstarter had some previous issues beforehand, and it was kind of out there. I didn't really know a lot about it. And I'm not that big on co-op games. I enjoy co-op a lot, but I just know I don't have any in my collection simply because I just don't have the people to play it with. And I finally got time to sit down and play Spirit Island, and I was pleasantly surprised by how just cool it is. One of the biggest problems with, well, cooperative games is that you sometimes get a person who's quite domineering. You sometimes get the alpha player who wants to try and, fix everything and get everyone to do what he thinks is the best solution to the puzzle. But in Spirit Island, that's simply not going to happen because everyone gets a spirit. And these spirits are wildly different. So you could have, say, the Earth Spirit, the Stone Giant, and all of his cards revolve around protecting the island. So he supplies defenses to various places on the island. Or, for example, you could have the Lightning, the Bird of Lightning Spirit, and his job is, well, basically what lightning does best, and that is destroy as much as possible. And then you might have, say, the Earth, or the leafy green plant spirit, and that's just supposed to spread growth and try and push away certain invaders from different spaces on the board. So each spirit plays very differently, so you kind of going into it not knowing what your spirit really is quite good at. For example, I found out in my game that my lightning bird spirit is really powerful, can do lots of damage, but isn't very good at removing blight, and blight is one of the ways you can lose. You can lose by essentially having too many invaders on the board and running out. You lose by having too much blight, which is caused by invaders ravaging the land, or you lose by the deck running out of cards. Now, we played on the easiest difficulty, and I can tell you now, this game is not easy. You're essentially balancing two things. You're balancing how much presence you have on the island, which will give you access to more energy and more cards that you can play, but you're also trying to balance a hand of cards. You see, at a certain point, you're going to have to discard your cards to play them, and then you'll bring them back using a certain action. When you bring them back, you'll get to add a new card to your deck. Of course, this is for one spirit. Other spirits will do things differently, but you get to add one card to your deck, and these are simply minor power cards. And these are quite cool because when you do that, you're essentially going to draw 4 from the top of the deck, and you're going to choose one. So you have this kind of augmentation as to think, okay, well, my character is quite weak at generating energy, so maybe I want to try and find a card that'll give me more energy to use in the next round. Or, I know my character is very powerful and good at destroying, so maybe I just want to exemplify that or make that strength even stronger by finding power cards that supply that. And then there's a nice backwards and forward between the different spirits. If you're playing solo, you're relying on yourself. But as you add more spirits in, the game becomes more difficult because you have to rely on each other's strengths. For example, if I'm the bird and I'm lightning and I'm destroying everything, I'm not really being able to get rid of all the blight tokens lying around. It's not one of my powers. So I might have to rely on my friend who's playing the Irvin dude to remove more blight. Or I might rely on, say, the water spirit to wash away the blight instead. And that's really cool. So there's a nice interplay there. But my real love of the game really comes in the fact that you get 8 spirits in the base game, you get 2 more in an expansion, and another 2 if you want to get the promo stuff. But the cool thing is, every spirit is so wildly different to play. For example, certain spirits are like the water spirit, the ocean spirit, is insanely strong against coastal regions, but actually when you go inland, it's quite weak. So again, you have to customize your deck to kind of augment that weakness. Likewise, you have the lightning spirit, which is just destroys everything, but it can't get rid of blight. And then you have, say, the fear spirits. There's 2 spirits that cause fear, and fear is great. Fear is whenever you destroy a building or you do something horrible to the invaders, they essentially get scared of you, which is quite thematic. The game is wonderfully thematic in kind of everything it does, but you'll get fear tokens, and as you get more fear tokens, you'll unlock fear cards, and that makes your objective to finish the game or win the game easier, but it also gives you a little special like bonus each round. So if you manage to get them all, then when you unlock that card, you'll get a once-off bonus, which might be to remove an invader in each water spot, for example. So it's quite nice. You don't really know what's coming, but you are trying to balance that. Likewise, invaders always spread to certain areas, and you can kind of give an idea of, similar to Pandemic, of where they're going to be spreading to next, and then you kind of have to mitigate them actually moving to the area by, well, destroying them as much as possible in certain places. It's a wonderful balancing act of power. You see, as you start the game off, you're quite weak as a spirit. You can do cool stuff, but you don't really have enough cards that you can play. You don't really have enough energy you can do. So you kind of want to spread out your presence, but by doing so, you're limiting, or you're essentially allowing the invaders to have free reign of the land for a while. And then it kind of climbs up the mountain, gets really, really difficult at a point, and then once you kind of cross over that threshold, it's basically rewarding as you go down the hill, because once you get to that part, you just are simply going to be playing out 5 cards a turn and chain them up as a reaction, and you're going to be getting 10 energy per turn. And it's just great. And also, how you build your deck is very important, because each card has these little kind of like element tokens on it, and your character does special abilities based on what those elements you have locked. So, for example, again, we're going back to my lightning bird. He wants to have a certain amount of air tokens, and he wants to have a certain amount of fire tokens, and he can just straight up destroy a city on his turn. And that's fantastic. Now, I have been very much enamored by this game. I like it a lot. However, there are 2 things I don't really like. The first is that you can get games where you don't have the right combination of spirits, and it just becomes a lot harder than what it really should be. You know, if you don't have an offensive spirit, you're going to struggle to actually deal with the invaders. If you have like 2 spirits that just keep pushing around the enemy, it's not going to help. Another thing is the components, while decent, the wooden component is really good. The art style is okay in a lot of places. I actually think the art style is quite good. When I say it's okay, there is, if you remember going back to like old school Magic, if you ever played old school Magic, you had cards, and the cards looked cool by themselves, but when compared to like the whole set, you could see that they were done by different artists, and they were going for different art styles, and the art styles can then kind of clash. It's not as bad as, say, Terraforming Mars, but it's definitely something to keep in mind, where it's not as great as what it could be. I would more like a cohesion when it comes to the art style. That's the one thing. The other thing is in terms of just the components. You see, in Spirit Island, you have the invaders, which are all plastic pieces, and you have the spirits, who are all wooden pieces. But the invaders are kind of crap. The human figures are decent, but they're quite brittle, and they're quite soft, and they're quite skinny, and they don't feel great to hold. And honestly, they could have just been made wooden tokens. It wouldn't help, or they could have been cardboard chits. In my case, I think there's an opportunity to maybe deluxify it, or at least present a better components. But my biggest hate is probably with the towns and the city components. They essentially feel like they've been 3D printed. I don't know what the molding process was, but they just don't feel nice to hold. They don't feel nice to place on the board, and they don't look particularly that great either. You know, I kind of just wish they would go back to the Settlers of Catan wooden pieces. I think that would almost be more thematically funny, where you're almost doing a reversal of Catan, where instead of you building the island of Catan, you're now destroying the island of Catan. I think that would be just a bit more better. I will say now, I do like the theme. You do feel like this protective spirit kind of destroying everything and trying to drive out these invaders, and it does feel quite satisfying. And I will say now, I love the asymmetry of this game. Oftentimes, you look at a game like Pandemic, and Pandemics, you have like the scientist who can research better, or you have, say, the transporter who can transport a person, or the medic who can prevent more diseases, but they only really have one special power. What I like about Spirit Island is how just asymmetrical these players are. You know, you have a spirit, they have 4 different starting unique cards. They're going to draw more power cards, and they're going to be different for each person as well. And then you also have a sense that you have your innate power as well, and then you also have a special power. So in my case, I could play certain cards as a fast action, and that's wonderful. It's such a good reward, and it's a challenging game. Even on the easiest difficulty, you're going to have a really tough time playing through the game, but it's rewarding when you get to do so. I do think now, if you are a fan of co-op games, Spirit Island is definitely something you should be looking at, and definitely something you should be picking up. If you're not a fan of co-op games, I still suggest taking a look at Spirit Island. I think you're really going to enjoy this asymmetry of the game. And there is rumors that there's going to be a second Kickstarter coming out in Gen Con, which is going to be like another print run of the game. So if you're still looking and you're trying to find where it's going to be coming out, then definitely keep your eye on that. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this review or thoughts video. If you have liked it, then please hit the like and of course subscribe. I try and put out a video at least once a week. And if you didn't like it, perhaps you have certain reasons, then leave a comment. Let me know what I could probably improve on. You know, let me know if this co-op games are what you enjoy playing. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.